This is the Pentonomics Program.
Welcome to the premiere episode of the Pentonomics Program, and I'm really thrilled to have our first guest, Greg Hunter of USAWatchdog. Thank you so much for coming on the program, Greg.
Good to be here, Michael. Thanks for having me.
I'm on the unusual position of serving questions. Usually I receive questions, and I'm sure it's mostly the same for you. So forgive me if I'm not as professional as you are. But I want to have you on, and I want to talk about the absolute corruption in traditional media and how it interfaced with this latest election of Donald Trump. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, yes. If you look at the mainstream media, it's what they cover and what they don't cover. What they didn't cover much was the WikiLeaks, and they were stunning revelations. You know, they wanted to say, well, they were illegal emails, or they were, I'm not so sure about their veracity. Well, they basically, in one comment after another, they admitted to their veracity. Their emails were real. They were their words from Hillary Clinton, John Podesta, all the collusion between the Democratic National Committee, the DNC, the Clinton campaign. Debbie Wasserman Schultz quit. Donna Brazile gave questions on multiple occasions. Now we find out, thank you WikiLeaks, to Bernie Sanders. They cheated, they lied, they colluded. It's phenomenal. It's unbelievable. They gave editorial powers to the New York Times. Politico also. I mean, one of the reporters, I feel like I'm a hack, don't tell anybody. I mean, it's unbelievable that they not only did people suspect that they leaned left, and no, they acted like propaganda hacks. They forget the media, forget the journalism. It's propaganda media. When you are that far into the tank, it's off the charts. It's unbelievable. I covered it, on one of the major newspapers was USA Today. Totally unfair what they didn't cover. I mean, there was a front page of the newspaper one day that said Hillary wants to cure Alzheimer's, and then some negative thing about Donald Trump. It's unbelievable. Here's one of my favorite headlines from the newspaper. I'll just show you this really quick. And this is absurd now, looking back on the landslide. Clinton Nation. This is USA Today thought shaping. Like they're going to tell people that there was a nation of Clinton supporters that are overwhelmingly unbelievable. And then the polling they did wrong. How did they get it so wrong? They wanted to get it wrong.
Right.
They got it wrong because they wanted to put out a psy operation. You can't get it that wrong. Although some of the anchors actually believed it, that the psyop, the psychological operation actually worked on some of their anchors. But the management knew about it. It wasn't just the reporters, the management. The media is unbelievable, unbelievably biased, and they're killing themselves.
Exactly. They are killing themselves, Greg. But why are they so corrupt? Why is their corruption so extent? What is their goal?
Well, the media is owned by the mainstream media, ABC, NBC, CBS, all the mainstream players are owned mostly by big multinational conglomerate companies, and they want this globalism. And that's what I think at its core. And so they hire people that will do their bidding, and they hire people of like mind, and they get rid of people like me, who reporters. I actually had somebody, Hagman and Hagman interviewed me, and he said, I guess you're really embarrassed, for your days at ABC and CNN. No, I did good work there. I did exploding airbags. I did depleted uranium munitions. I confronted people in the Pentagon. I did stuff about, sign the note, what they called robo-signing, which is they wanted you to think it was just people really fast signing stuff. It was forgery, perjury, fraud on the court. I did that at CNN. They supported me to do that. So when I was at ABC and CNN, I was proud of what I was doing. I was functioning as a reporter, as a real investigative reporter with a staff and with a budget to go out and uncover dirt that the public needed to know. Not, oh, he touched me 22 years ago, 3 weeks before an election. Real dirt, your car could blow up, or, our soldiers were getting sick because of depleted uranium dust, from Iraq, or, we're being defrauded by the tens of billions, hundreds of billions of dollars in the mortgage scam. So I was proud of myself. And
I'm proud of you too, Greg. The work you do on USA Watchdog is exemplary. I want to ask you why the reason why they dismissed you from CNN. Get into that a little bit. What was the ostensible reason why they asked you to leave?
They didn't renew my contract, so that's the real technical thing. So I didn't have any dirt. I didn't do anything with the interns. I didn't cheat on my expense report. I didn't collude with candidates from a party. I didn't reveal. I didn't give anybody editorial power over my stories. That to me is unbelievable. I mean, there's a difference between calling somebody up and saying, "Hey, Michael, let me make sure I get this right. Now, you graduated from such and such. Now, you said so and so. Whenever I quote somebody, I write it down and I read it back. Okay? Now, you said such and such. Do I got that right? Yes. No. Oh, okay. Or yes. Whatever. I would never give anybody editorial power over my story. I would never, as an investigative reporter, you never told anybody what you were even working on. Until you were ready to put it on the air, it was on the air. You never did that. And so, but why they got rid of me? So at the end of my tenure at CNN, I started looking at the economy. And I was always an investigative reporter, and investigative reporters were always working. I just looked at data. And I looked at data to build a story. Basically, I functioned as a paralegal, really.
How refreshing. How refreshing.
Yeah, I mean, I really got this stuff to make sure that I could do the story, to make sure the pieces were there. I'll tell you my 9/11 story, too. I want to tell you about that story. You want to hear it. To make sure the pieces are there, not to tell people what to say, just, hey, Dr. So-and-so, or hey, so-and-so, I'm going to do a story on so. What would you say about, wow, would you say that on camera? Because, that way, because when you did a story at the networks at my level, it was like doing a little movie. I mean, you had to have airfare, you had to have, you had to pitch a story, you had to pitch who the players were, who the victims were, what the possible outcome was. Not that you were going to, but you did all this research. There was no going out on the story going, oh, excuse me, stop. Oh, no. Oh, this is not a story. Oh, gosh, no, this is not a story. That never happened. Because you knew it was a story before you committed 10, 15, 20 grand to go shoot 3 minutes. And so why did they get rid of me? So I started doing the financial stuff. And I think, wow, first thing I remember, Ali Velsh, remember him?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes. I was interviewed by him.
Arguments in the hall over, listen, all my research, because all I did was look at data, whether it's data on depleted uranium or the housing crisis or finance. And I started interviewing people, interviewing guests, and getting sources. I said, all my sources are telling me this is not going to be contained. This is going to blow up. All my sources, and these are good sources. I had some of them on CNN, which I had to jump through all kinds of hoops to get them on because they were so anti what they were, preaching, contained and green shoots and whatever there was. But I said, listen, you can't knock out housing. This is in 2007. You can't knock out housing, automobiles, and the banks and expect not to be in a recession. I think we're in a recession. What are you talking about? And they were like, oh, we really get this. Yes, we get careful. And then I said, all the banks go up. Well, Dick Parsons was the head of Time Warner. Where was Dick Parsons a member of the board? Citigroup. What did he became, or did he ultimately become? The CEO of Citigroup. So here I am on CNN going, all the banks are in trouble. They're all in trouble. I mean, people looked at me like I had two heads. Remember, this is 07, early 08. All the banks are in trouble. All the banks are in trouble.
I was on TV on a weekly basis, Greg, and laughed at, derided, and scorned. I was their piñata.
And so what happened was they, I was doing that. I was doing things like, I think we're going to have to print a lot of money. I mean, this is going to be inflationary. And what they did was nobody knew what they were going to do. I mean, what they did was, that's why a lot of people missed the timing, I think, because they were off the charts. They committed fraud and crime. I mean, not just money printing. They just committed outright fraud, suspending accounting rules, whatever. But I was reporting on that. And so all of a sudden they just came to me and I was getting good ratings. Oh my gosh.
They didn't even care about ratings? Wow. Unbelievable.
The producer said, when I said, how do you know I'm getting good ratings? She says, well, we've been testing that. I said, what do you mean? She says, well, when we promote you and put you at the beginning of the show, the ratings spike there and then fall off. When we put you in the middle of the show, the ratings spike down there and then fall off. When we put you at the end, they hold all the way good until so I'd be at the end of the show. And they spike all the way to the end of the show. I said, really? She said, oh yeah, we've been testing that.
Wow.
Anyways,
that's incredible.
They came to me about 60 days before my contract and said, we're not going to renew your contract. We're going to go in a different direction. I went, huh? What?
You must have been shocked.
I was shocked. I had one manager, actually the bureau chief at CNN New York, stops me in the hallway one day and said, I heard we were not renewing your contract. He says, all the idiots we have employed, I don't understand why we're getting rid of them.
Wow. Unbelievable.
There you go.
Unbelievable. Well, that dovetails to my next question. I want to talk a little bit about news theory. I'm fascinated by this. I know, as I told you, I've been thrown off CNBC television. I'm thrown off Bloomberg for the most part, thrown off even Fox News, for God's sake. I can't understand that one. I want to talk about news theory. Who the hell decides what news is? I know it's a news editor, but who is the arbiter of what they put on television? Do you know that? And why does it all seem, do they all get into one room, gather together and say, well, this is news. Donald Trump said something 20 years ago on a bus. There's no evidence that he ever did it, but we'll run that loop nonstop for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week until his poll numbers go down. That's news. But what isn't news is the fact that we've counterfeited $3.7 trillion and we've blown up the bond bubble to epic proportions. Who decides what is news, Greg?
Well, the executive producers of the shows, managements, they want you to believe. Like I remember Michael Wolff at CNN at USA Today writes this story. He's a writer at USA Today, and there was a line in there that said that reporters have taken it on their own volition. Whoa, no way. You're talking about reporters. You're talking about the inmates running the asylum. No, that ain't how it works. No, Michael Wolff has to approve, I'm sure, every story he does before he splatters it all over the 4.3 million readers at USA Today. I never walked by the control room at CNN or at Good Morning America down in Times Square and told my boss, hey, you're going to love this investigative piece where I'm trashing the military, I'm trashing whatever, I'm doing something that blows up. You're going to love this piece when you see it for the first time on the air. No. That is so tightly controlled. It is unbelievable. And I know because all I did was I did like R&D. Now, could something slip out on the air in a live slot and somebody went, oh, shoot, or oh, the cuss word or whatever. Yeah. Could something slip out on a live shot? Sure, yes. But when you're doing a piece where you're sending out a crew and you have an idea and you have a concept and you're interviewing people, that has to be budgeted, that has to be approved. You know that legal is stepped in. When they did these Donald Trump stories, legal stepped in. Legal stepped in and said, well, hold on a minute. What did she say? And what did they have? Standards, supposedly standards, which is should we take the fly swatter of CNN and swat this fly? I don't know where legal and standards was where all the standards should have put the stop to it. As soon as they said, well, does she have any proof? No. Did she have file a police report? Well, no, but he touched me on an airplane. Whoa! You put that on the air? Right. But now the president, what? You're kidding. They told me get out of my. Anybody else? Can you imagine doing that with Bill Clinton? Could you imagine somebody coming for him and saying, "Hey, I want to do a story about all the women that never filed a complaint that said that Bill Clinton touched them on an airplane. Did you file a complaint? No. Did you tell anybody? No. Do you have any witnesses? No. Oh, let's put that on the air." They would never do that to Bill Clinton, who lost his job because of Monica Lewinsky and was impeached. That lost his job, got impeached.
Yeah, he was impeached.
But they wouldn't let me do. There's no way I'd even pitch it.
Craig, why did the media fall in love with the media? Absolutely fawned over Bill Clinton. They overlooked what he did and how he disrespected the White House with an intern who was almost a minor and a cigar. How he disrespected that White House. Ronald Reagan never went into the Oval Office without a suit and a tie on because how much he respected the office of the presidency. Bill Clinton, what he did under his desk was an abomination. The media still love Bill Clinton, but the duplicity of the media, how they absolutely scorned and vilified Donald Trump for what he supposedly did. Can you explain why are they, what is the real goal for the media? That's what I'm trying to get at. What is the real goal here?
Character assassination, propaganda. That's what they turned into, and the WikiLeaks email shows that that pretty well. It's documented that they gave up editorial powers, that they were, and it wasn't just the rank and file, it was the management. And here's why I say it was the management. Listen, you gave up editorial powers you're a reporter and you're at the New York Times. This actually happened according to WikiLeaks. You gave up editorial powers. Why is that person fired? You colluded with, covering up a story about John Podesta, Washington Post. Why isn't that person fired? You gave information to people and let them editorial powers at Politico. Why isn't that person fired? You colluded with why? Well, that means that management is involved, and management should be fired. So why are they doing it? Because they're engaging in propaganda. They're engaging in thought shaping. They're engaging in lying and false narratives.
But Greg, is it to promote global warming? To get hydrocarbons down? Is it one global central bank? What is their ultimate goal here? Because it seems to me that the media, and I'm 53 years old, and when I was growing up and in high school and college, the media was much more sophisticated. There's been a severe dumbing down of the media. If you ever watch the Today Show, it's what kind of pet collar looks best on this dog. I mean, there's no more real journalism anymore. And everybody's treated like they have an IQ sub 100. What is their ultimate goal? I'm going to ask that again. See if you can get me to the place. Where do they want to take the United States?
Well, part of that is they wanted to. Part of that is just money. Part of that is that they put on what sells. That's part of it. The other part of it is that they wanted Hillary Clinton. Now here's how you know about you have Bob Woodward, okay, the guy who did Watergate. Watergate, compared to what Hillary Clinton was doing and has done, looks like me going out and sticking gum in your hair. Okay, I did investigative work. Watergate, Nixon erased 18 minutes of tape. There was no national security problem. There was nobody made any money. Hillary Clinton used private. I'm going to sum this up really simply. And Bob Woodward ought to give back his Pulitzer. He had 20 people. He goes on Fox and says he has 20 people working on digging up stories on Donald Trump. Yeah, Hillary Clinton used private servers, treason, which was to cover up the fact she was taking treasonous bribes. Look at Uranium One and all the deals what they had with how she interceded with the whole UBS and all the foreign accounts in Switzerland. Look at so she private servers to cover up the fact she was taking treasonous bribes through a global charity fraud called the Clinton Foundation. The president was talking to Hillary from the beginning with a private email address and a pseudonym and a fake name, an alias.
Wow.
That's not a front. This is according to WikiLeaks. That's not a front page story. And yet, Donald Trump touched me on a plane 22 years ago. I mean, that's outrageous.
It is.
It's outrageous abdication of their duty as the press. Again, they ran a horrible criminal, I think, a criminal treasonous candidate, and they cheated to get her in. They cheated Bernie Sanders. What happened?
Unbelievable. Greg, what gets me?
I think they have in a global agenda that they want no local laws. They want a global world that they can, the big companies, they want a global world where they make the rules for the world. They don't want the little people. They don't want any Bill of Rights. They don't want people with guns. They don't want people Hillary Clinton, this is what scared me the most about Hillary Clinton. She sat in, and I heard her say this, she sat with, what's his name, one of the debate moderators, Chris Wallace, and said there are limits to the Second Amendment. That's a stand. And then she said, and there are limits to the First Amendment. Oh, there are limits to my right to free speech, limits to my vote, limits to my religion. There are limits to my gathering in public. What? There are limits to the First Amendment.
Wow, so, that is scary.
She would have been. We're going to get a horrible, I think, and that's what I've been telling my people. We're going to get a horrible downturn, especially with the bond market shooting up, and you know more about this than me. We're going to get a horrible economy, but at least we won't have full-on tyranny of Hillary Clinton.
So what do we have? We have a disarmed populace, a dumbed-down populace.
We don't have a disarmed populace.
That's what they want, though. But that's what they want. That's where they want to take us. That's what Hillary Clinton wanted to sue, giving people the ability to sue gun manufacturers if somebody murders somebody. That's like saying if someone kills somebody with a car who's drunk, you should sue General Motors. Yeah. So that's where America's headed. But I want to talk about this a little bit.
Not at the moment.
Yeah. Well, we have a little bit of reprieve, don't we? You know what I find also fascinating about the media, and I want you to comment on this. The media did some kind of introspection after the election. I was listening to Fareed Zakaria on GPS, CNN. You're probably familiar with that program. And he got everything wrong. He had all the smartest people on his program, all the best pollsters in the world, and everybody said that Donald Trump didn't really stand a chance. And he was sure of Hillary Clinton's election to the presidency. And when he was proven wrong, the rationale for Trump's ascendancy to the presidency was given and ascribed to racism. He believed, and the media believes that the reason why Donald Trump was elected because a bunch of dumb, uneducated white people voted for Donald Trump, and that shows and proves the inherent racism of the American citizen. Can you comment on that, please?
Yes, and this is more of a false narrative, propaganda. This is more propaganda put out by the mainstream media. We now know that the dirty tricks, and this is what the Nazis, the National Socialist Party, the Nazis, this is what the Democrats could morph into. I'm not going to call them Nazis now, but these are the same dirty tricks that the Nazis did pre-World War II, and that was they would foment violence. And what did the Project Veritas videos show? They show that they were fomenting violence at Trump rallies to make it out like they were, a bunch of hillbilly, redneck, violent people. They put magazine covers. Here's what it's going to look like if Trump wins. All this terrible stuff that would happen with Trump winning and violence in the streets. And what has happened now that the Hillary supporters have done the opposite and paid for by George Soros. So the violence was being fomented and paid for by the Democratic Party, and links to Hillary Clinton, according to Project Veritas and the on-camera interviews. Bob Kramer went to the White House and had some 40 face-to-face meetings with the president and dozens of other meetings at the White House. This is the guy that was fomenting the violence, and he resigned, and the other person was committing voter fraud. And there's one report out there that says there's at least 3 million alien votes that were cast in this election. 3 million. And so this is all what's going on, is this giant psyop. And Fareed Zakaria is nothing more than a propaganda shill. He's a total propaganda show. He has nothing to back that up on. And the pollsters, they were wrong, and I think they wanted to be wrong. It was a psyop. Oh, you can't, you don't, oh, she's going to win by a landslide. You might as well just stay home. She's up by so many points. No, but that didn't work. It backfired. And the reason why it backfired is because of the alternative media. Now we find out now Google is going to attack fake news sites. Who's going to delineate what a fake news site is? Twitter is now, stop the accounts, cancel the accounts of tons of alt media sites that they want to suppress. Back to the first limits in the First Amendment, they want to suppress free speech. All these different tech companies and media companies, Facebook tries to suppress free speech. Google, if you put in a Google search for Hillary Clinton, you couldn't find Hillary Clinton criminal or Hillary Clinton taking bribes, and you found Hillary Clinton, the next president of the United States. That was Google, right? I mean, I think that's, I'm loosely saying that, but that's even, the Google. So we found out that Google was in the tank trying to help the Democratic Party. And then they committed all kinds of fraud. Now we have people they don't really cover this very much. There are people who are protesting. Real Democrats, unpaid, were protesting. And I'll tell you another thing, Leslie Stahl. The image, what they want is these people, they spend millions of dollars for the image of being fair. Look at Lester Holt. When he they did the debate. Oh, well, he'll be fair. No, he wasn't. No, and I don't need WikiLeaks. Kid, no, he wasn't. Look at Martha Raddatz. Oh, sure, unfair. She started debating. Trump just said, Martha, would you sit over there with Hillary so I could just look at you both? I had to pick you both. Chris Wallace was pretty fair, more fair than anybody else. But look at Leslie Stahl, interviews the president. Well, all these protests across the country. Hey, Leslie, you're a reporter. Did you document any of that? Did you document that these were paid, that George Soros was paying for this? And there's all kinds of evidence online for Craigslist advertising for protesters and busing and all. Did you look into any of that? And all she says is, well, they're paid. Trump says, well, they're paid protests. Well, they're all paid protesters? I don't know. Hey, Leslie, why don't you run that down and act like a reporter? Oh, excuse me. Have somebody on your staff run that down and come prepared because you're interviewing the president-elect and you're trying to throw dirt on him and his supporters. And he said that, oh, by the way, this has been Hillary Clinton supporters. Look at this. I mean, can you imagine? Here this says rape Melania, okay?
Oh my gosh.
If Donald Trump supporters had a sign out saying rape Chelsea.
Wow. Well, I did see over and over again on that CNN loop white power. It was like 2 seconds of somebody walking with a sign white power, but I have never seen that. I wonder why they ignore that side of that.
Here's another one. And you know what I think? I think that this stuff could be, and we know that we're paying for disruptors. They know they're paying for things. They're just saying on Alex Jones, where some guy pushes a anti-Trump supporter down the stairs. Oh, he's a registered Democrat. And so here is the day after. This is the day that the president-elect and president. I just want to show you this. This is the more thought-shaping evil of Gannett, which stock is off about 80%. I tell people to sell the stock because they're committing fraud. They're committing fraud against shareholders. I'll talk about that in a minute. And I want to get my 9/11 story in too because this has been going on for a while. So here's the story. This is below the fold. The President-elect Trump and President Obama, right? But here is the story above the fold. Here's the thought-shaping above the fold. Can you see this?
Yes.
Hold on, let me get in there. Okay. So it's a swastika.
Make America white again.
Right? They don't have no idea. This is in some dugout in upstate New York. That's the picture on the front page of USA Today on
read the,
let's see,
Greg,
November
read the
13th.
title.
That's the
Greg,
picture.
read the title. Let the people read the title to that. Read the title. Read the title to it. Rise in Racist Acts Follows Election. That's the front page headline for USA Today.
And this is a little picture of a dugout in upstate New York with a town of about, 500 people. And this is what rise of, how do you know, that wasn't a Democrat psyop, that we know that they're fomenting violence. So now they have this whole white racism, white backlash, white lash, this false narrative that they want to paint. And of USA Today, which did not run down who did what, who actually did this. And they're using a picture on the back of a spray painting with a $1.99 can of paint on the back of some podunk town dugout. That's the big rise in racism.
By the way,
that's what they want you to think.
Right. Let me just say this: that there were less white people that voted for Donald Trump than did in the previous election, and the reason why Mrs. Clinton did not win the presidency is because there were more African Americans who stayed home. And that's the truth.
And also, he got more African American vote than Mitt Romney.
Right.
And then you have to factor in all the fraud. I mean, when you think of what happened in this election, and I'm not a proponent for Donald Trump, but what they did to him, I'm a proponent for the truth. And what they tried to do to him was off the charts, wrong. All the media lined up against him, and they colluded with the DNC and the Hillary Clinton camp because she got veto power and she got editorial power over some of these stories. The attack ads, the amount of attack ads were an avalanche of money spent, giving him a negative reputation. People are like, well, they both have bad negatives. Oh my God, she started spending tens of millions of dollars long before he did to try to trash his reputation. And then you take a look at all the illegal votes, and right now we have one estimate is 3 million illegal aliens voted. And this is why they want sanctuary cities. Why? Because they want sanctuary voting class of people. And so when you take a look at the uphill battle, I mean, in 2012, it's like, well, Barack Obama got more votes. Well, he had the whole support of the mainstream media. He had the entire support fawning over him, never saying a bad thing about him. It's unbelievable. And I still think his birth certificate, and I want to bring up this and how the mainstream press abdicated their, Sheriff Joe Arpaio and his investigators came out and said that Obama's birth certificate was a computer-generated fraud. You're not going to run that story down, Washington Post? You know, the home of Watergate, where you could trash this Republican sheriff, this well-known, famous. You could trash him if you could make a case that he's, you know, crazy. But they wouldn't even touch the mechanics of it. And I wanted somebody to go out and do a story. It's all online. You know, they made the allegation. Their whole thing was online. Birthers. And the other thing is, why his college transcripts sealed? Why? Why doesn't the press say, why is his transcript sealed? Why? I don't know where Obama was born, incidentally. I have no idea. But when somebody makes a charge that it's computer-generated fraud, why didn't they go out and beat that down? You know, get a computer forensic analyst at the FBI, somebody that can get probably Greta or the New York, NYPD, or anybody that they could get. There's plenty of people that they could book to say, oh, here's my analysis on this computer-generated fraud. They didn't even wade into it. They just went, oh, birther. And my thing was, why don't you wade into it? Why don't you embarrass Sheriff Arpaio?
And
then
somebody has to be embarrassed.
Transcripts.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Somebody in that story has to be embarrassed. But you have to do your work, and no one's willing to do that work.
But they never did it. I mean, this Washington Post, this is the people that did Watergate. They spent, you know, probably millions of dollars over a course of a couple of years with Woodward and Bernstein doing Watergate, and you can't just run down an online story. It's free. It's easy. You don't have to fly anywhere. You sit there at a desk and say, okay, you know, I mean, right? If they spent.
Right.
This is a big investigation. They would not investigate the actual claim that it was, and take apart that, well, no, it's really not computer generated because of this, and this, and this, and this. But my question was, why did they do it? But anyway, I digress. The long and short of it is, the mainstream press has got two big, terrible fronts now. Number one, they've been laid bare as a propaganda mechanism by the alt-left, by the far left. By the globalist, okay? That's number one. Number two is that the technology has changed so much. I mean, when I was at CNN, and this is before the advent of people really starting doing what you're doing, and I applaud you for doing this, and that was, you know, I had to add a $150,000 producer, and I said, hey, I want to talk to, let's say, Michael Pento, and I want to tell you, so she would call up and book, then she would go and book the control room, make sure there was a director, make sure there was an audio engineer there, make sure there was a video operator. I don't think they had tape. Even back then, they had servers. Then they'd have to have the lights on. They'd have to have maybe some floor director or somebody come out, set the studio up. Can you imagine how expensive that is compared to what we're doing?
It's $700 for having a half an hour just to rent the studio over there at Rutgers University near where I live. So I know it's very expensive. That's just to hire the studio. Forget about the production part of it.
Yeah, but I'm saying, you can imagine how much it would cost to do this at CNN. How much all the equipment, the piping, the staffing, the personnel would so much more than what you cost. I will tell you one thing: it would cost more than $700 to buy time on the satellite, on the bird, what they called it, and have a window of time and send a crew. Then I'd have to send a crew to set up lights and set up stuff and mic you and do all that stuff if I want to do a live shot with you, right? But that's going away. That's so expensive relative to what you're doing, what I'm doing right now. That's what I'm saying. That's why this is disruptive technology. And it's pretty clean video, pretty nice stuff.
And it's filling a huge hole, Greg. You're filling I got to thank you for what you've done and starting USA Watchdog. You are fulfilling a huge hole that's evident in the mainstream media.
This is an act of God. I'll tell you why. I had interviews at Bloomberg. I had interviews at CBS, interviews at CNBC, interviews at NBC. And I think I got blackballed because I couldn't get anybody to, hire me. And a friend of mine said, why don't you start a website? And really. And so I was just going to do this until I got hired at one of the networks. Now I wouldn't go back. But I did this by total accident, really. I mean, I didn't want to have a website. And I came up with I tried to do American Watchdog, but that was a corrupted title. So I got USAWatchdog.com. .org and so I got those titles, and I'm on USAWatchdog.com, and so I did this by accident. And I tell you what, it took me a long time to break through. It took me 4.5 years to break through.
Wow, and congratulations. So I want to kind of wrap this up. Do you have anything you wanted to talk about before I wrap it up? I have one more question for you, but I know you wanted to touch on a couple of topics, but if you could just wrap it up quickly.
I'll tell you my 9/11 story. And my 9/11 story is this. I'm out on a live shot doing another story about exploding dishwashers at Good Morning America, and I'm out in Colorado Springs. Where's the Air Force Academy? Colorado Springs, is that where it is?
I don't know.
So I'm out. Well, I'll tell you why that's important, because I'm out there and I get done with my live shot out at one of the local TV stations, the ABC station out there, and we're on our way to a news story. And I'm out in the country tribe. We got a little bit lost, and on the radio we hear, oh, a plane hit the tower in 9/11, and I had to go turn around at the Air Force Academy. So I told them, I said, hey, the plane just hit 9/11. This is not a joke and not a prank. You call your bosses. They're probably watching this on TV right now, so you may want to be on high alert. And I went back and I tried to go back to the airport. Well, they downed all the planes. They stopped all the planes, and no, they didn't have anything flying. And I tried to rent a car, and I said I wanted to rent. This is in 2001, and I wanted to rent a new Chevy Impala. I said I'd like to rent a new Chevy Impala. Where are you going to go? I'm going to go across the country. Well, where are you going to go? New York City. They said we'll give you this Lumina that we have. I said, oh, okay. So anyway, it took 2 days to drive across. My wife's in New York City. I'm freaking out. And I take 2 days this is 9/11, right? I'm out of town, so I take 2 days to drive across the city, drive across the country, and I'm listening to all this stuff going on. I never saw any of the video, incidentally. I never saw any of the video for a year, till the next year they finally stopped showing it. And I'm thinking, wow, this is a super fun site. This is unbelievable. Wow, the whole thing's turned to powder. So I get back to ABC, right, and I'm thinking they're going to send me down to downtown. We were at at Columbus Avenue up on near 65th, all right, 63rd, 65th. Anyway, I'm up at the ABC building, and I'm running around town to Janovic Hardware buying respirators, with screw-on attachments, because I think this dust down there's got to be, who knows what's in it. I call over to, and I can't remember his name. I call over to the top MD at Cedars-Sinai Hospital for occupational hazards, MD. His boss figured out that asbestos caused cancer, his mentor. Okay. So I called, hey, I'm Greg Hunter with ABC. Now, remember what I told you now. Now, I'm going to call and I'm going to do a story, but before I book a camera, before I get anything, I'm going to make sure I know what he's going to say. Make sure I know this is a story. Tell me about the site down there. Is that dangerous? Oh, yeah, it's dangerous. Really? Yeah, oh, yeah, it's totally dangerous. That's a super fun site. That's what he tells me. Will you say that on camera? I said, yeah. Well, what about the guys that have these little paper masks? Oh, you might as well have a sock on your face. No, you need a full respirator. And you need a hazmat suit, but the minimum, you need a full respirator.
Wow.
Well, I don't see any of those people down there. No, they never. He said, he says, now listen, away from the pile, and this burned for 1,000 hours. Remember that. 1,000 hours this was burning, so days, weeks after this is burning, and they're down there on that day. And this is only a few days, it's only 2 days after this, and they're still searching for people in the pile. And I'm thinking, oh my God! And you remember that after this thing crashed, they were all ready for people to come in the hospitals, right? What a dozen people came in. Either you got out or you died. That's all there's to it. And unfortunately, that's what happened. Either you got out or you died. There was a few stories of people trapped, but by and large, there wasn't this big throng of people that entered the hospitals. Thousands of people. That wasn't what it was. So the people exposed were the people on the pile. And he says, the doctor says to him, he says, well, anybody that was within 20 blocks, and 20 blocks is what? A mile in New York City. Wow. A mile. About 20 blocks, I'd say. You need a respirator. Well, what's right next door to the World Trade Center? Within 20 blocks, that'd be Wall Street. That'd be the exchanges.
Then you have to shut them down.
I go to my bosses and say, hey, man, he says that everybody down there ought to have a respirator. We ought to go to Mayor Giuliani. And Giuliani didn't know this. There's no way he could have known this. I didn't know this. There's no way. I said, this is the top occupational MD for Cedars-Sinai Hospital for occupational hazards, telling me that everybody ought to have a hazmat suit and a respirator. We ought to go to Giuliani and get a trainload of respirators, a trainload of respirators flown in, and nobody should be down there anywhere near that place without a respirator, a full, down to 5 microns. Thank you. Go away. I called World News Tonight. Hey, man, you need to have respirators. Thank you. Go. What happened to all those people?
What did your editor say about it? You brought this to your editor, I'm sure, at ABC. What did he say?
My boss at ABC. I called over to the assignment editors over at World News Tonight, and they just shined me on like I was some retard.
Wow. That's amazing.
What happened? Oh, Christy Todd Whitman. Remember her? Air is clean. Where they put all the snifters on the west side of Lower Manhattan. Where does the wind blow in Manhattan? From west to east, right? And so Christy Todd Whitman, boy, she shirked off into history, didn't she? And she told everybody that the air was clean down there. No, it was not.
And that doctor was, if you look at all the deaths and cancers from the first responders there, that gentleman, that doctor was proven correct, without a doubt.
Absolutely correct. And I said we should go to, I don't mean go and embarrass the mayor because he wouldn't know this. And I even told him, I said, he probably doesn't know this. I'm sure he doesn't know this.
Yeah. Was surprised.
I mean, they're looking for bodies, so he's not really concentrating on this. But man, everybody down there, I had my own respirator. Anytime I went anywhere near there, I had to put a respirator on. I had a friend of mine that worked at the FTC, way down. I mean, at that tip of Manhattan, and I gave her a respirator. I said, please, no matter what they say, you use this every day. As soon as you come out of the train station, you put this on.
Wow. So it's all about bucks, I guess, at the end of this.
Yeah,
day.
I mean, it was a disaster that they just, I was pitching that in 2001, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, September 13th or 14th, I was pitching that story. Remember, it burned for 1,000 hours.
Yes.
They were down there for weeks looking through the roof.
Yeah. So, that's a great story, and what a great interview. So thank you so much for coming on. I want to close with, I want to just say this. I voted for Donald Trump. I don't want any of my audience to think that I'm some person who's trying to promote the success of Donald Trump. I voted for him, but I held my nose when I did it. Listen, I don't think he's a panacea. I think he's going to run up massive deficits. I think he's going to blow up the bond bubble. I don't like trade wars. So I'm just not a big fan of Donald Trump. I think he'd be much better than Hillary Clinton. So I'm not, this program isn't about the media's bias against Donald Trump. It's about the media's devolution into dumbing down America and to promoting some type of global agenda.
That's what
And I believe that you have just opened up our eyes. You've taken a couple of layers off that onion today for us, and there's a lot more layers to be uncovered. But the fact that you're no longer on television, by the way, you are a dynamic, attractive, very intelligent man. And the work you've done on CNN, ABC, and what you're doing on USAWatchdog proves that beyond a doubt. The fact that they have you ostracized and being treated like a pariah, when they have the clowns that masquerade as reporters on the mainstream media, is ridiculous. So thank you again for your service. Thank you again for what you're doing, for promoting alternative media outlets like USA Watchdog, and hopefully for getting the Pentonomics Program off to a wonderful start.
Thanks for having me on, Michael Pento. I'll have you on my show, USA Watchdog. You're a favorite of all my subscribers here on USA Watchdog. People love it, man. You're just like staccato. You're like a computer, man. You just know one bing, 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 fact after another, man. You live this stuff. So anyway, thank you for having me on. Appreciate it.
It was my pleasure, Greg.